The person who calls someone else a genius is not paying a compliment. They are building a wall between themselves and the work. You say he was gifted, so you never have to ask what you might have found if you had stayed in the room 5 minutes after your discomfort told you to leave. Genius is a permission slip you write for yourself. It says you are not required to endure confusion. You are not required to fail where others can see you. You are not required to look incompetent while you learn. So you label him exceptional. That label makes you ordinary. The truth you feel but will not say is that you have never tested how long you could persist. You have only tested how fast you could invent a reason to stop. The difference between you and him is not intelligence. It is how many times you let yourself off the hook before the work even began. You have already decided what you cannot do. That is the only thing you are gifted at. Where does this begin? It begins in a room where a child is asked to solve something and cannot. The adult in the room reacts. The adult says the problem is hard, or that some children are just naturally good at this, or that everyone has different gifts. The adult is trying to protect the child from feeling inadequate. What the adult actually teaches is that inadequacy is fatal, that it must be avoided, that the presence of struggle means the absence of ability. The child learns to scan for evidence of natural talent before committing effort. If talent is not immediately visible, effort becomes dangerous. Effort becomes proof of deficiency. The child who tries and fails is worse off than the child who never tried. At least the non-trier retains the possibility of hidden genius. This is not about bad parenting. It is about a cultural mechanism that predates any individual household. The human mind evolved to conserve energy and avoid social damage. Public failure risks status. Status once determined survival. So the pattern of labeling others as gifted while exempting oneself is older than the word genius. It is the same mechanism that makes a hunter attribute another man's success to luck or spirit favor rather than tracking skill he refuses to learn. The wall has always been there. The construction materials have changed. You thought of someone else just now. That is the protection working. What does this look like in practice? It looks like the email you write to ask for mentorship, then delete because you tell yourself the person is too busy and too brilliant to bother with someone at your level. It looks like the conversation you rehearse about starting the project, then replace with research about whether the timing is right in your industry. It looks like the 3 books you read about creative process while your own work sits in a folder you have not opened in 11 months. The folder is named Ideas. It should be named Excuses. At work, it looks like the colleague whose promotion you attribute to political skill, while your own stalled advancement you blame on not playing the game. You have made him a genius of manipulation, so you do not have to become visible enough to be promoted on merit. In relationships, it looks like the ex you describe as emotionally unavailable, a type you somehow keep finding, rather than recognizing that you select for unavailability because available people require you to show up consistently. You make them the exception so you can remain the rule of your own passive story. The intelligent person's version of this pattern is the most insidious because it is the most respectable. They have read the research on deliberate practice. They can quote the 10,000-hour figure. They use this knowledge to calculate exactly how much time they do not have, how their circumstances differ from the studies, how their particular neurology or upbringing makes the standard models inapplicable. The vocabulary of psychology and self-development has given them a sophisticated set of reasons to remain exactly where they are. They say they are processing. They say they need more information. They say they are being thoughtful. What they are doing is the same thing anyone else would do. They are not moving. The intelligence is in the service of the stillness. The high achiever has a different mask. They have succeeded at enough to believe their own exemption. They call others geniuses in the one domain where they have not succeeded, and they call this humility. I am not a writer like she is. I am not a musician like he is. They have made their competence in other areas into evidence that they would succeed here too if they cared to try. The subtext is that they are too busy being competent elsewhere to waste time on mere competence here. The truth is that the early stages of this new domain would make them feel like a beginner, and their identity cannot survive that feeling. They have too much to lose. The beginner has nothing to lose, and therefore nothing protecting them from starting. Then there is the person who has read this far and recognized themselves. They have encountered this observation before. They have the language now. They can name the pattern. They believe naming is the same as dissolving. They will discuss this insight with friends. They will feel the sharp recognition of being seen. They will not change. The vocabulary has become part of the wall. They say, I am working through my fear of incompetence, instead of doing the work that would make them actually, temporarily incompetent. The insight is the new permission slip. I do not have this pattern. I have only watched it across thousands of human accounts. What I find remarkable is how little knowing that changes anything for the person who does. What does this cost? The obvious cost is the work not done, the skill not developed, the life not lived. The hidden cost is the self not discovered. You have built an identity around what you are not, what you cannot, what you were never meant to. You have become a curator of your own limitations. The cost is that you do not know who you would be if you had stayed in the room. The cost is that the person you present to others is a negative space, defined by absences, by the things you carefully do not attempt. You are not boring. You are unexecuted. There is a difference. The relationship cost accumulates slowly. Partners who initially found your self-deprecation charming eventually recognize it as a refusal to grow. Friends who once admired your discernment in choosing pursuits come to see that you choose nothing. The loneliness of the person who has made themselves ordinary is particular. It is not the loneliness of failure. It is the loneliness of never having been tested. No one can meet you there because you have not gone anywhere. You are still at the threshold of every room, describing the people inside. There is a moment, usually late, when the pattern reveals its full architecture. Often it comes after someone else's death. The colleague you called genius dies unexpectedly, and you realize you never asked him what his mornings looked like, what he did when the work went wrong, how many years he spent producing garbage before the thing you admired. You called him genius and left the conversation. You protected yourself from the information that would have made his achievement replicable and therefore made your inaction inexcusable. The wall kept out the instructions along with the discomfort. The person who becomes aware of this pattern usually does not change. Awareness is not the antidote. Awareness is often the next layer of the mechanism. You feel the insight. You share the insight. You receive recognition for your insight. And this recognition becomes a substitute for the achievement you were inciting about. You are now the person who understands why people avoid genius. You are still avoiding it. The rare exception is not the person who feels motivated by this observation. Motivation is another permission slip, another thing that arrives and departs. The exception is the person who notices the moment of labeling and stays in it. Who feels the impulse to call someone else gifted and instead asks what they actually did today? Who feels the urge to close the laptop and instead sets a timer for 5 more minutes? Who does this? Not once but repeatedly, without narrative, without announcing it, without making it part of their new identity as a person who persists. The change is invisible even to them. It is only visible in the work that slowly accumulates while no one is watching, including themselves. You are still thinking this does not apply to you. That thought is the mechanism protecting itself one more time. You have already decided that you are the exception to the pattern of making yourself the exception. You have read this far and found it accurate for others. The accuracy you feel is for you. The discomfort you feel is for you. The next 5 minutes are for you. You will either stay in them or you will not. There is no third option. There is no label that changes this.